Will you be remembered after you're dead? The Zedless Deadless podcast about obscure people from history with me, Izzy Lawrence. The best thing about my job is also the worst thing about my job. I get sent a lot of books, and these aren't just the sort of books that you can leave. I can't leave books anyway. I spend a lot of time down Reading Library going, oh, what's this? And then looking up 2 hours later, I've wasted my day. However, the books I get sent are by amazing historians. So I get all of these great books, and I hardly ever get a time to read them all, certainly not cover to cover. Steve Kershaw sent me his book, Barbarians Rebellion Resistance to the Roman Empire, and he made the mistake of including the most amazing maps right at the beginning. For example, map 6, Rome and the Barbarians, Tiberius to Hadrian. I hadn't heard of the Kingdom of Bosphorus before. Oh yeah, it's in the Black Sea. But so you get obsessed with the maps, and then you start reading through the chapters. And to be fair to Steve, it is a massive book, so I was only able to dip in and out of a few chapters, and I didn't get very far into it. So the story of Brennus is quite near the beginning, and that is what we're going to talk about today. Now, the other thing you need to know about Steve Kershaw is we have mutual friends, and so when I said, "Hey, do you want to come and record my podcast?" he was like, "Yes," and so I did that round my house, and well, we might have drunk some wine, which happens to be on topic, but it does mean that this is quite a lively conversation, which is imbued with Bacchus and all of his godly ways. I have to say that I recorded this podcast whilst drunk. But that makes history come alive, and everybody in history was drunk, because we, unlike, and when I say we, I mean sort of Western culture, didn't understand the whole sort of boiling water to make tea. So we had quite a lot of rotten crops. That's what we drank. Anyway, this is an amazing story. I was familiar with it before I read it in his book. Also, before you enter this, I really want you to think about what Rome was like 400 BC and earlier, because I think we always think of, it's Rome, and I think of America, that's what I think of. Or I think of, maybe the British Empire a little bit, or something really sort of magnificent and ordered and sort of scary, like with Darth Vader in charge. You don't think of Deddington. You don't think of a small hamlet. So I want you to think of a small hamlet, not the pig kind. I'm just confusing you now. I hope you pour yourself a lovely glass of wine, because you're a cultured sort, and listen to this interview with me and Stephen Kershaw. Let's talk about your book.
Yeah,
You've got Barbarians, Rebellion and Resistance to the Roman Empire. And it is basically not the Romans book.
That's right. It's a book about Romans, but from the other side of the fence. So we want to know about the guys in Barbaria and in Barbaricum. And the problem is that the Romans, they don't speak for themselves. So I kind of just wanted to give them a voice. Yeah. That's the idea.
Well, but you don't want them speaking for themselves, because they're very uncouth.
Well, they are. And that's why they're called barbarians, because they just go, to a Roman, they just go bar, 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 bar. And that's nice. The origin of the name.
I remember being on a beach when I was a kid, and an Italian child, when I was trying to speak to him, he went, blah, 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 at me, and I was like, that's not what I sound like.
But it is, because you are a barbarian.
I am a barbarian.
And they were Italian, they are a Roman.
And barbarian means furry, doesn't it? Is that
No,
right?
it is simply someone who goes bar, bar, bar. It's the Greeks started it.
Oh, okay.
And they just, anyone who didn't speak Greek or spoke it badly, they even speak Greek, but speaking Greek badly, they just burbled, they babbled, they went bar, 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 bar.
Beautiful, isn't it?
And even possibly the English word baby is derived from all of that as well. Wow. So originally it was about the way you speak and not the way you behave. It's cool.
Okay, so it's basically just, as usual, Greeks thinking they're better than everyone.
Yeah. And then it was a huge piece of cultural appropriation by the Romans.
Well, they did speak Greek.
Because they didn't speak Greek. They were barbarians. To the Greeks, the Romans were barbarians.
But then they did speak Greek, because Julius Caesar spoke Greek.
Yeah, some of them did. Educated ones did.
But that's much later, because we're going to start off quite early on, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Like when Rome is literally just a city.
It is not even a city. It's kind of like just collection of huts with a few fortifications, really. It hasn't grown at all.
It's so odd that it's that particular city that goes, I'm just going to take over everything. This is the one.
Yeah.
Why that one and not another one?
It's tough. It's partly the people, partly where it is. Geographically it's in a good place, but it just grew, and the thing they were good at was assimilating other cultures. When they conquered people, a lot of the time they seemed to get them to buy into their own Romanness. So they absorbed them as well as conquering them. So they kind of grew every time they conquered someone. They became part of their process.
This is why the Americans use their, symbols all the time.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, I'm in the middle of teaching a load of Americans at the moment, and they always think that they're Romans.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of similarities in their governments.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And particularly now, Nero.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Caligula.
Well, yes. Well, no, I quite like Caligula is one of my favourite. The fun fact about Caligula, if you don't know this already, is Caligula means little boots.
Absolutely.
Which is the cutest thing.
Because when he was little, they thought that he was the cutest little thing.
Yeah.
And his parents used to dress him up in a miniature Roman general's outfit with these little boots, which are called caligae. And the soldiers loved him. They thought, it's a cute little kid, and he's wearing his little boots, and it's all marvellous and lovely. And then he becomes a psychopathic, monstrous killer of everybody.
Played by John Hurt.
Yeah.
So, which is always but it is weird to think that your baby name is a name that you end up being known throughout time.
Yeah, absolutely. A little baby cute name becomes a byword for monstrosity and appallingness.
As a curiosity, what would you be?
Goodness knows.
What were you called as a child?
They just call me Kirsch.
Kirsch,
which is, it's all right.
That's quite cool.
It's not very imaginative.
Dictator Kirsch.
Yeah, Dictator Kirsch. And I also had a very horrible nickname at school, which I was called Grovel.
Oh, wow.
As well, which came out of a rugby match.
Okay.
Where I was the fullback in the rugby team, and I was chasing to catch a ball, and I spilled it, and it like rugby balls bounce all over the place, and I sort of fell over and ended up grovelling for about 25 yards across the rugby pitch in the mud, chasing the ball. And at the end of it, they all said, grovel, and it stuck.
Oh, that's a good one.
So grovel, grov, or Kirsch.
Anybody interested? I would have been Boo. So
cool.
So I might still be Boo. You might be worshipping Boo one day. But no. So let's talk about Brennus, because Brennus is what minus in my head.
Yeah.
It's so 449.
Yeah, you're in the we're in centuries BC.
Centuries BC.
And the Romans are on the rise. Not much on the rise. They're just a little village, and all the time before Brennus shows up, Rome's just been fighting its neighbours, which is like village on village. It's like,
it's a bit bigger than a village. It's
but it's not much. It's a bit like my village. It's like Deddington fighting Adderbury, or or something like that. It's not even Oxford fighting Reading at this point. Really. It is kind of, but all of a sudden these Gauls come in, and it's a great story. The reason the Gauls come in is it's about alcohol.
Nice.
It's about alcohol.
We've had a few tonight.
We have, and we'll probably have some more. But it's all about booze.
Yeah.
Because the one of the things that makes you barbarian is not drinking wine. Drinking beer is as barbaric as you can possibly get. The Romans think that beer drinkers are the most barbaric things ever.
It's so weird because, if you look at even modern British culture, and particularly 60s and 70s, Labour, you had your bitters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tories always drank wine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a similar kind of thing. And then all of a sudden the people go out from Rome and introduce the Gauls to wine and olive oil as well. And they love this. It's a Mediterranean diet and nice wine. And the Gauls are just obsessed with this. They've never had anything like this ever in their culture, so they want some more. So they just get huge gangs of Gauls just get together and come over the Alps into Italy to get the wine.
It's like a booze cruise.
It's like a booze cruise, yeah. and they're told that this is easy pickings. They said these Italians are soft, that they fight just like women. They're told. And there were some scary women in antiquity,
Yeah.
but this is what the Gauls are told. And they come sweeping into Italy in the search of wine, and it's like, we don't have to buy the wine anymore, we just take the vineyards and make our own. And they end up settling in Italy.
It's all about
It's
just
about
because
wine.
they like the taste of wine.
Yeah, so if you want to civilise someone in the ancient world, you've got to make them drink wine.
Okay.
And then it's also highly barbaric to drink your wine neat.
Oh,
You've got to put water in your wine and water it down. So we've been so barbaric far this evening.
I have.
Yeah.
Yes. Very
Yes, I'm
barbaric.
not sure what they
But
make of
my
gin,
mum, when
but-
I was a kid, used to give me watered down wine.
Yeah,
so I
there
was a
you go.
very civilised
So you were
child.
civilised, yeah. So the degree to which you are civilised is how much water you put in your wine.
Now, is this true? So there's a fact that's going around in my head that the Gauls, this might be much later on, but they used to get amphora of wine and behead it.
Yes.
And, yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
you
not
like
making that. I was thinking, have I read this in Asterix and is it true?
Yeah, no, they're good. The Gauls are barbarous. They're all
So
weird.
instead
They're
of
all
human
others.
sacrifice, you'd have or an animal sacrifice, you'd sacrifice your wine. With the wine. Or it's not, because obviously appease the gods.
Yeah, you appease the gods, and you mustn't go against the gods.
So, I know indeed, you wouldn't dare. They're fickle. But the Gauls, so they start off. So presumably they come over the Alps.
Yeah, they come over the Alps. They come into Italy, and then they get aggressive towards Rome.
Right, and the Romans at this point.
The Romans kind of not really strong enough to resist. So the Gauls under this leader who's called, the Romans call him Brennus.
Brennus.
And the Greeks call him Brennos.
Okay.
Because Greeks write about Romans and stuff. Greeks are interested in these barbarian Romans. And so in they sweep, and Brennus and his Gauls take possession of Rome.
That's impossible.
Right so early in Rome's history, it's going to be like 800 years before anyone else takes Rome. Wow. But in the early days, they take Rome, and they're gloriously barbarous. Okay. In the Roman stories.
Right. So I mean, Rome it presumably had walls and was a sort of mini.
Yes. It has a citadel.
That sounds grand.
So all the fighting is over the citadel. They're trying to get the citadel.
In your book, you say that they basically let them in, and all of these Romans are basically waiting. So the elders are there with their long beards.
Yes, it's
I remember
extraordinary.
The long beards.
Yeah, because they go and they sit in their houses. The Romans had never come across this before, but all the great elders of town just go. Yeah, they go and sit in their fine houses with their great long beards. So barbarians and beards have got nothing to do with each other. Okay. Civilized people can be beardy. But yeah, they just sit in their houses. They're almost looking like strange cult statues, and they're sitting there impassive while there's kind of all this carnage going on in Rome, and it stays like that until one of the Gauls goes up to one of these Romans and pulls his beard, grabs him by the beard, and of course the Roman responds by belting the Gaul, and the violence breaks out and carnage ensues.
So it's like a sort of thing where the Gauls arrive, and they arrive through the city and everything's kind of peaceful and quiet.
Yes, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's
that would
weird
be so
vibe.
odd.
Fantastic.
That'd be really freaky.
Yeah.
Because you'd expect, I'm going to loot a city, I'm going to rape and pillage, get all the wine, this will be great. And you walk in and it's like, welcome, we're not saying anything. Yeah. Don't touch stuff. You're just like, which is a trigger booby trap, and it's an
absolutely, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So the Gauls are in Rome. So how come Rome survived?
Well, it's the Romans are nothing if not resilient. They fight. They've got this. They think Romans always think of themselves as farmers and soldiers. So and we're a core. Whether and in later times they still think of that. Whether they've never done any farming, none of them ever fought, but they still think of themselves as farmers and soldiers.
The fall of the Republic is down to
this, absolutely. Yeah. So these guys are they're tough and hardy and resilient, and they never give in. That's the one thing the Romans never do. They never give in. So they don't. They're able to fight back, and of course they're saved by their geese.
They're geese?
Yes.
They're geese?
They're geese.
Okay.
So there's this marvellous moment where the Gauls are trying to climb up the rocks to get to the actual citadel, and they're doing it dead quiet. They've got their best climbers are going up.
I love the fact that you have best climbers.
You've got best climbers. Gauls always got best climbers, yeah. And you give them rewards. You say, if you get to the top first silently, I'll give you a very large amounts of wine.
Nice.
And this, and the Gauls say, yeah, I'll go for that. And up they go, and they get right to the top, and the Romans have not seen them or heard them coming, but the geese did. And so the geese go cluck, cluck, flappy, flappy.
They honk.
And they honk. They do honk. Yes.
I go down the Thames. They sound like clown cars.
They do. Yeah, that's it.
That's the noise. That's a Roman hears. And that's how you know there's a Gaul.
Absolutely. It's exactly. That was a very accurate historical representation. So I can't remember what the Latin word for honk is at this point off the top of my head, but the geese honk away, and they alert the Romans who fight back, and they beat the Gauls off their citadel.
But they don't actually beat the Gauls entirely, because they try and come to a peace treaty.
That's right, they do. And it's, again, weird sort of goings on. All the atmosphere of this is always very strange.
I just remember, because in your book, and I don't know if it's the same battle I'm thinking of, because this is the trouble with ancient history. One, all the Romans are called Scipio.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's a battle where what happens is they're walking along a river, and the Romans are in a long, thin line in the river, and the Gauls are up a hill.
Yeah.
And they just charge them into the river and massacre them.
Yeah, they do.
That happened.
That's right. Yeah,
genius move. That is proper strategy. Tactical, nice.
That's right. Yeah,
that gets men in maps excited.
Yes, men and maps. Men love maps, and they get very excited about that.
I see. It's going to be a good book because there's maps at the start. There are lots of maps.
We've got loads of maps. That's good.
Yeah. I spent more on the maps than I did on the writing, to be fair.
That's cool. That's cool. We don't mind that.
Very happy with that. Genuinely, really good. Yeah. But yeah, so that battle happens outside Rome. So they come to the city, then they fight outside the city.
That's right.
They go back in the city. That's to me, because I think us modern people are very sort of like, if you look at Aleppo and everything, and everything is very much in the city, bomb the civilians. Else. These guys seem to sort of like preserve the city a bit.
Yes, they do, and at the same time, they have internal difficulties. The Romans are not unified. They're not sure who should be leading them and who should be.
They've got two bosses.
They got loads of people. They got dictators, and they have who are people just in charge for a bit. And there's triumphs and political infighting between them. They can't make up their mind who's going to lead and who's going to follow, and it's all very factional.
When you start your city with a couple of wolves.
This is what happens. It's just the wolf thing. It's such a cool thing, but really weird that the Romans are in origin. They're like refugees from a conflict zone in their mythology. So that they all come over from Troy. So Troy gets sacked by Greeks, and Aeneas takes a small band of followers and the household gods of the family, and he makes all these travels, and he hasn't.
Actually, I did not know this.
I
didn't link it to Troy.
So in the myth, and they trace their origins back to the Trojans. So they get kicked out of Troy. They're Turkish, and which is kind of full circle. Mehmet the Conqueror was kind of well into that.
Yeah,
he was kind of making the connections as well. So Aeneas comes out and he brings the household gods, and he travels all the way from what's now Turkey to Italy, and he has great adventures on the way. He goes down into the underworld to meet the ghost of his dad, and he gets a pep talk off his dad about.
It's nothing on Odysseus.
No, he's kind of just going. Odysseus. Odysseus the underworld kind of came up to Odysseus, but that was which was kind of cool. But Aeneas, he goes down there. To meet the ghost of his dad, and he has great adventures with Dido of Carthage, lovely little sexy time in a cave, but in the end he has to leave behind the love of his life because he has a duty to found Rome, and he gets his
place.
And he gets to Rome, and he gets his Trojans to Rome, and sort of sets in this process that leads you to Romulus and Remus and the wolf and the whole thing, and Gauls on the Citadel and dictators and world domination.
It all ends up in Trump. but anyway, so Brennus has conquered the Romans. They've been driven in the river. They've been massacred.
Yeah.
They come to a peace treaty.
Yeah.
Which is where my brain remembers the story from, because the
Right.
peace treaty is awesome.
Yeah, tell us about the peace treaty.
No, you tell us. You're the historian. No, I've read about it in your book, so you're the book.
I can't remember about the peace treaty.
No, all that happens is the Romans pay the Gauls. They
That's
say,
right.
I'll give you this much gold if you go away, and they go, okay, that much gold. But then they cheat.
They do, and it's beautiful the way they cheat, because they just use false weights. So the Romans are supposed to bring them, so many kilograms of gold, and the Gauls are just. They've just rigged the weighing system.
I reckon. See, Gauls are the sort of people who use kettlebells, because in my gym, I reckon those kettlebells get heavier.
I bet they
the
do.
More you use them.
And Gallic ones would be
even
a lot heavier.
And they'd probably mark them.
It would say 14 kilograms on it, and it would actually be
like
28. It would.
That's right.
So that's what they were doing. So they were. So the Romans were bringing all this stuff, and the Gauls were weighing it out, and the Romans
had pre-weighed it, so they knew.
That's
exactly
the Romans knew what they were
Yeah.
giving, and the Romans are deeply unhappy about this.
Yeah.
Deep. Well, you would be, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
If you'd made the deal and all that kind of thing. But the Romans, they just complain about this.
Yeah.
They say, this is so unfair. You're being barbaric. You're cheating. You're being cheaty barbarians.
On your word.
You beer drinking, cheaty Gallic barbarian, smelly, hairy, wearing goat skins and painting yourselves blue with woad and stuff like that, and your cheaty things, and the Gauls say, well, tough.
Brennus himself.
Brennus, and he has, I think, the best soundbite in the whole of Roman history, and he just says, it sounds so great in Latin. Vae victis. It means woe to the conquered.
And he chucked his sword down on the waist.
Absolutely.
Loser.
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
You gonna do
That's right.
What you gonna do?
Yeah, it's like, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
Oh no, you're not hard enough. But he does get his comeuppance.
He does. Yeah, he does.
It's a sad time.
Which is the way. Really.
But it's. I mean, so the Romans complain that these guys have cheated them. So they're happy, they take their gold, they leave, and then the Romans kind of go back on their word.
Yes, they do.
Which is exactly what they complained the Gauls did.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but that's the Roman way, I guess.
We will not lose.
Yeah.
We will let you escape, and then
we'll have you.
Exactly, and they did.
And
they just massacred them.
Yeah,
and that's what happened to poor old Brennus.
Yeah.
He didn't get to drink all his wine.
No, he didn't.
All his gold.
It was the end of Brennus, but he was this fantastic. The Gaul who conquered Rome.
Amazing.
It's fantastic. The Gaul and nobody else is going to conquer Rome for
not
so long.
I mean, I was going to say Julius Caesar crossing but it's not, is it? There's a guy.
No, I mean, there's Romans who conquer Rome. But that kind of doesn't count. No, I think we're only talking barbarians conquering Rome. Okay. The next one's going to be Alaric the Goth.
And
it's going to take till 410 AD.
And he's just going to ask for mascara anyway. So, just like eyeliner.
Yeah.
He's
He's miserable all the time and
so they're the ones
listening
with,
to The Cure.
Well, for those who are interested, who is it? It's Macmillan. No, it's not. It's Robinson.
Constable and Robinson.
And it is a bloody good read and also the maps. You need to get it just for the maps. The maps are beautiful. Heason has a little it's like an entire chapter of maps. If you ever read like Tolkien, this is better. The maps are better. It's beautiful. An amazing book. And thank you so much for telling us about Brennus.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yay!
It's such a badass move. Woe to the conquered. What you going to do about it? Clang. I'm just going to place my sword on the scales. You're going to have to give me more gold. And what are you going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. I have your word that I get the gold and I will leave. And then when I leave, you'll slaughter me. The Romans are, it's just not right, is it? It really isn't right. There's no honour in a Roman. If you go, if you surrender and then kill your enemies, have you won? I just don't know what to make of the Romans, honestly. I get let down by them an awful lot. However, yeah, I hope you really enjoyed the interview. The book is amazing. I'm now, hang on, how far have I got into it? I am now on page, she says, getting to it. Yeah, I'm on page 388, and that is nowhere near the end. And I'm on Zenobia. So yeah, who, if you don't know, was one of the great female figures of antiquity. Her face was dusky and of swarthy colour. Her eyes were black and unusually powerful. Her spirit was divine, and she was unbelievably attractive. She was also ferociously intelligent, well-educated, having been tutored by the old-school Platonist and literary critic Cassius Longinus. Longinus. So, or Longinus. So, that's why you need to buy Barbarians Rebellion and Resistance to the Roman Empire by Stephen P Kershaw. I'm hoping to have an interview next month with Hidden Histories podcaster Helen Carr, but we're just organising that. Otherwise, you're going to get a miscellany of bits that I have recorded and have found no home for. Aww. But until then, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do leave feedback, like write a review on iTunes, share this episode with your friends. If you didn't like it, don't do any of that, but or share it with your enemies, because your enemies, they deserve to be bored. But yeah, no, and thanks again for everybody who donates. It really does make a difference. It means that I can afford to buy wine for my guests, which I don't water down. You've been listening to the Zedless Deadless podcast with me, Izzy Lawrence. To find out more, please visit izzi.com, that is ISZI.com. You can also find more about the unstoppable Letty Peg, out with Bloomsbury on the 6th of February 2020, she says, not looking at it. I think that's right. Buy it. Or pre-order it now. And yeah, and thank you, and good day, and I'll see you again, and cheers.